Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ar-Feinial here again with another reading from the Secrets of Terra Silenti, Chapter 5. And for those of you wondering, I will be finishing this book. I have not decided yet if I'm going to do it for the second one, which is named The Covenant. So without further ado, let's just get into it. Glentor was in the company of an elf named Erden and a warrior called Glenroy. They had known each other for years, for when the need came, Erden and Glenroy would always answer. Friends they were, but they were always quiet on the road. Peace and quiet, the needs of a halfling. It was a very simple arrangement. Glentor was a halfling merchant who lived in the land of Paxus. He was middle-aged and had traveled quite a bit. Unlike his halfling kin, he knew the troubles of the world and did not take the peace he found in Paxus for granted. He would never leave Paxus if it could be helped, but sometimes his work needed him to move out into the world and sell his items there. Usually he would only make the trip every 5 years, but he usually sold out in the world for about a year or 6 months at a time, when the halfling could no longer handle it. Glenroy was a human warrior, also middle-aged, near 45. He was a strongly built man and did not shave his face often. He had a full beard when it came to this journey. He always had his trusty warhammer and his sword. He was never into archery, which made him and Erden a good pair. Erden was an elf from Zinasa of the High Elves. He took up the path of a ranger, for he looked up to his cousin who was in the Rangers Guild. He could never truly live on his own, though. Unlike many of his woodland brothers, he needed to be social, to have someone to talk to on the road. One of the reasons he was never accepted into the guild, as it was often quiet and not talkative. Glentor's merchandise was in the back of the carriage, being pulled by his pony. He guided the pony along the thick brush of the old forest. The woods were so thick one could not see too far, either left or right, and even the travelers had to be careful or they'd risk tripping over a root and spraining something. Other things they had to look out for were the kulisu, a bird that if provoked would bite and leave its victim paralyzed, or at best delirious. Horsehounds were also common. Glenroy was in the front of the carriage, while Erden remained behind it. His elf ears could pick up something far ahead and even pierce the woods of this ancient forest. The two of them stayed focused and usually never relaxed until they got out of this forest, for they knew there were many dangers here. There was silence, except for a few blue jays swooping down and singing their songs. So, where would we go going this time? Glenroy asked, never shifting his gaze over to the halfling. Sheriff's, was his reply. A certain audience is there often, and I intend to sell much of my merchandise there. I have acquired many gems, and Sheriff has a lot of dwarves who would pay quite a bit for such. You must follow your ear when traveling. New places means new markets. I see, Erden said. Monetary gain, I take it then. Glenroy, you know that this is the same answer he always gives us. How long will be the stay, Master Halfling? 6 months? Last time they were in Kenderhell. Perhaps. I doubt much longer than that, of course, he replied. But the sooner I get home, the better. Homesick already? Glenroy asked in his deep voice. It was still strong with that accent of the north. Nay, he replied grimly. It's just... I'm not sure. But it feels as though this will be my last trip outside my homeland. Is that not what you want? Erden asked. Thought you hated leaving your homeland. I do, I hate it very much, he said. But rather something I fear more is dying in a foreign land, with no one to claim my body, perform the ritual rites. Something that I feel is coming sooner rather than anticipated. Do not think that, my friend, Erden said reassuringly. Hope is always right before your very nose. We are here for you, Glentor, and we would not let anything happen to you, as long as we still breathe. The sun cast its shadow before setting over the horizon. There was a sudden breeze in the air, cool, menacing. It sent chills up everyone's spine, even the ponies. Glentor took a moment to try to calm his beast. Glenroy looked up ahead of the road and saw a log emitting smoke. It had been on fire, but not for long, sending the smell of freshly burning wood into the air. It reminded the halfling of the many bonfires he had attended in the east, while listening to tales of the bards and music sung by songstresses. It was very pleasant to him. Erden climbed up on top of the carriage to see if there was anything he could hear, anything he could see. He heard soft footsteps approaching. He looked past the burning log. Yes, he too could see it, and beyond that, he could see a cloaked woman. She walked towards them and revealed a sword at her waist. It was one that spoke death, not bringing any comfort to them. "Who goes there?" Erden called out. "Who are you?" He knocked an arrow to his bow and pointed at the woman. There was no answer. "Answer me, or I will loose upon you." There was still no answer. The woman was now on Glenroy's side, so he had his warhammer ready. The woman approached and drew her weapon. The emerald green light darkened the air. Erden loosed the arrow aimed at her chest. He witnessed the arrow go right through her chest and out the other side of her, penetrating the earth. Glenroy saw this as well. It was almost as if she was not there, only an illusion stood before them. In their shock, they did not hear a horsehound growling on the other side of the road. It pounced and pinned the warrior to the ground. Erden did not see this, for his anxiety over the apparently ethereal woman held his gaze. Immediately, he ran to the side of the road, firing arrows at the woman as she continued her approach. Each arrow fired burst into flames as it left the bowstring. He could see that there was no stopping this woman. "What do you want?" he demanded sternly, drawing his long sword. Never seen ghosts before. The non-effects of his arrows left him speechless and witless. "Leave us be." "Tell me," she began, swinging her sword ostentatiously. "Do you know Cack in the Woodlands?" Erden took a step back at the sound of the name. "My cousin. My cousin. I know of him. What do you want with him? What does he owe you?" He tried to remain calm, but the tremble in his voice was apparent, and the halfling saw this too. "Oh, he knows too much, Erden," the woman replied. She smiled as the elf took another step back, fear in his heart. "I must kill him. He's your cousin, is he not?" "My name? How does she know my name? How does she even know of my relationship to him?" His thoughts raced and his eyes no longer focused on any one thing. "Gak, what did you get yourself into?" He stumbled backwards, letting his sword hit the ground. He changed his focus, knowing he must not let this thing scare him. Not if he was to protect his cousin and his way of life. He stood back up proudly, taking his sword and bringing it above his waist, ready to fight. "You will not get any answer from me," he told her. "I will not let you take him. We have no quarrel with you. Be on your way, and I will be on mine." "So sad, really," she said. "Erden the brave, but Erden the failure. Long have you tried to get into that guild, and long has your cousin let you chase that silly dream of yours. Dream you'll never achieve. Not if you die here, anyway." She paused. "Tell me where I can find him and you be spared. There's no reason for all three of you to die here today." Her eyes glared into his. Erden felt like he was staring the devil in the face, and his soul was slowly being ripped out of its husk. How does she know so much? It's like she's pushing me into the frying pan over an open fire with burning coal surrounding it. There's no way out of this dream. Is that all this is? "I will not submit to your will, witch. I will not give you this information. I will die before I do as such," Erden declared in a strong, unwavering voice. He glanced at the halfling. "It will be okay, Glentor. Nothing will happen to you." Erden turned to the woman with determination in his eyes. What be your name? Because you know so much, I know nothing about you. Tell me who you are. I am Fakino, she replied, and brought her sword up to eye level. Her grin stretched from ear to ear, her teeth gnashed, if you must know. But I am far more dangerous than anything you have encountered and never will. Put your arms down and you will survive. Never, he cried out. I will hold my ground. Do you really want Glinter's death on your conscience? Perhaps I'll leave you alone and kill the halfling instead. Erden resolved to stand his ground, but his arm was quivering. Glenroy, he was unaware of his other companion's predicament. His sword trembled in his hands. Erden, Glinter called him. No, my answer remains the same. I will not give up my own blood, no matter the cost. You foolish child, you've thrown it all away. She charged at him with her blade that spoke death, cackling the entire way. The jagged edges glimmered as the sun touched its surface. Her cackles echoed across the forest. He parried her sword with his, but was still amazed at her agility. He took steps back and forth to remain unharmed. It seemed to work, but he was not fast enough. With all her speed, she was also cunning. With her strength wearing him down, he could not react as quickly. One swing at a time, he got a cut from her, usually in the stomach area, usually the same spot. Damn her. She is playing with me like a child would tease a dog. Erden tried to push her away, but to no avail. She was too powerful for him, and Glenroy was not capable of helping him. He was on his own, and he knew it. Further and further, he felt the tension grow between them, the strength of the woman far greater than his own. How could he possibly fight back? With one last attempt to defend himself, she confused him one last time by disappearing into smoke. He was lost in confusion. He did not know where she was, could not hear her. Even a small breath he could not hear. Not hers. His blood raced through his veins. She would not give him that satisfaction. What is this? Where's this thing? There's no way she could cast a spell that quickly. No wizard has this much skill with the blade. A blade ripping through his flesh before he could feel it slice through his back as the butcher does when he portions his meat. He screamed, dropping his blades on the ground where it rested with part of the handle sticking up. The pain to him was indescribable. He grunted and was forced to lay on his back with the wound in the dirt, causing more pain, followed by the feeling of cold steel at his throat. He covered his wounds with his hands, applying pressure to the more serious of them. You are helpless here, Erden, Doan told him. Do you think one of the Forgotten could be bested by one so young? I am older than most of these trees. He could feel the pressure from the blade dig into his neck. Tell me where your cousin may be found, and I will not kill you. I have not heard from him in months, Fakino, Erden replied in desperation. He didn't think twice at this moment that his words would betray his kin, and his heart grew weary. Tears rolled down his eyes. She was right about him. He was but a child. He was nothing but a child who wanted to sit at the adults' table in an adult world. It was true, and he knew it. Last I knew, he was living in Malitude. Beyond that, I do not know. He heard a sudden crack followed by a crash. Glenroy's warhammer had hit Fakino in the side and sent her flying into a tree. He staggered up in front of his bleeding comrade. Erden looked and he saw the warg was finally beaten. Its body crushed in numerous places. Its intestines were exposed at its side. Leave my friend alone, he roared. We will not give in to your maddening demands. Oh, Glenroy, she said, seeming not caring that she was just hit with a large warhammer into a tree. Her cloak didn't appear to be torn. How long has it been since you left Grento? Ever since you failed with raising your brother, who was bent on seeking revenge? Became evil, he did, and well, so do the powers of the dark. What be your game, he asked, ever standing his ground. You mean to play with my emotion? Well, I tell you, it does not work here, not with me. He chose his path, and I chose mine. He will hate who he hates. And you have not the desire to change that, she sighed. Well, all siblings grow apart, even you being 10 years older, but that will not help you here. time is up for you, my friend. Glenroy replied and brought his warhammer up, prepared to strike. She ran at him with her sword, and he parried the blow and brought the hammer down on her head. She was shaking a little, but she took the blow. This allowed her to make the swing up through his belly. He cried out as the blood sprayed from his wound. He too fell backwards and dropped his weapon. The head of the hammer sunk into the ground. She shook off the blow in the head, and a blow there from that weapon should have killed her. Erden, she turned to him, you should better take care of your things, especially your friends, for their recklessness will bring about your own destruction. Luckily for you, I will choose to destroy him here. No, he cried, pulling his friend closer. I'll tell you anything you want to know, anything. Just spare him like you said you would spare me. Tell me in full what you know of his whereabouts, she roared. He last sent me a letter nearly 7 months ago. It said he was in Manitou and that he would stay there. That was his new home, he said. He left the Rangers Guild at some point. He was truly sure of it. That is what the note said. Erden told her. His voice began to trail off. He was never too close with anyone, even from his own family. He kept secrets. The answer to that is clearly unknown. That is all I have to say to you. That is all that I know. Please spare us. She contemplated what she would do next. She stood up and put her sword back into the sheath and turned. I will spare you, but do not expect my master to show you more mercy than I have. You must expect less of it, she told them. I will leave you three for now. For even if you are lying to me, you have given me valuable information. She turned and walked away. Glentor went into his carriage and found cloth, using it for makeshift bandages for his companions. He went over to the two and patched them up. Do not move, either of you. He went back to his carriage. He came back with 2 flasks that were filled with green, thick fluid. He gave each one of them the flask. Drink out, this will make you feel much better, my friends. They each took a flask and drank. The thick fluid tasted nasty, almost a sour taste with none of the sweetness. It was also very bitter, much like taking a bite out of a lemon. Though it tasted terrible, it did help them feel better. They could feel the mysterious liquid help in the healing of their wounds. Glenroy gave a nod of thanks. Never really wanted to express himself with words, but the nod was more than enough for the halfling. Thank you, Glentor. That was really thoughtful, the elf said, not like there was much choice in the matter, but still, the appreciation also there tenfold. He paused, picking up his swords. Now we can continue, despite the slight disturbance, but we will get there in time. Aye, he replied. The three gathered their bearings and started off again. It continued to be slow until they hit a much wider part of the forest. After that, it was much easier to pick up the pace and still be comfortable. There were still a few roots and rocks, but nothing that was noticeable or particularly dangerous. Although he didn't say anything, Erden's thoughts strayed to his cousin, one he rarely spoke to, but one he admired. He truly wondered what kind of mess he was in. They did not travel long on the wider part of the forest before they set up camp, lit a fire, set up a tent for the halfling, and laid out the bedrolls. And this has been a reading from The Secrets of Terra Silenti by Ar-Feinial, narrated by yours truly. In Chapter 5, The Old Forest. I'll be sure to leave a link to the page. Check it out. If check it out or not, you can go ahead and do so. If that's not something you're interested in reading and just want to listen to my stuttering voice read the entire thing all the way through chapter, I want to say there's 26 chapters in this novel. Nope, that's the other one. There's 22 chapters in this novel. And that is fine too. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But it'll be there if you want to check it out. There's a map in there, and there should be a colorized map in the Kindle version as well. but there should also be a map on the main Facebook page. All right, and without further ado, then I hope you get your week started off just right.